Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. This is Anna Sothen with the In Crowd, and I have a very special, well, all of my guests are special, but I really do have a special guest with me today. One who is probably was a little mortified when I asked him to come. So my husband, Adam Sothen, is here with us today. So say hi to everyone.
Good afternoon, all.
He is terrified. One, why? Because he has no idea what I'm going to ask him.
Yes.
And then two, he has no idea what I'm going to ask him. So
yes.
So he's like, what are we going to talk about? I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I brought him on here today because I wanted him to share his perspective on being married to an entrepreneur, because we've been having some conversations lately about what that looks like for our family. So I want to tell everybody's story, because I don't know if everybody knows this story of like when I actually started my business. So 3 years ago, a friend of mine, Kim, had approached me about wanting to be a publisher. And originally I said, no, thank you. And then like 6 months later, she posted her first, cover of her magazine. And I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. So I talked with her on a Wednesday. I talked with our division manager on a Thursday, and I was in training the following Monday. But I remember coming downstairs and you were in the office. And I remember dramatically opening the French doors and saying, guess what? And anytime I say that to my husband, he gets terrified, because usually what comes at the end of this, that is
how much is it going to cost me?
that, and him having to anchor me down as I like soar, right? So I said, I'm going to be a publisher. And the words out of his mouth were, what the F does that mean? And I said, I have no idea. And that's literally how we've spent the last 23 years of our lives, right? 23 this summer, 23, married 23.
Yeah, 24.
Together 24.
Almost a quarter of a century.
He's the math guy, by the way. But that's how I introduced this to him. And he's never told me no. Yeah. I mean, he may have said, maybe we should think about this a little bit more. And then he does research and all that kind of stuff. And then we still end up doing it because happy wife, happy life. Right.
Yep.
So tell them recant your memory of my telling you, like, what were you going through, or what did you think when I said that to you?
That's a good question. I don't know that I remember exactly. I think I was probably a little bit terrified, just not knowing, I guess when I think of a publisher, what you're doing with a magazine, you are publishing a magazine.
Right.
But when I think of a publisher, I'm thinking on a grand scale. I'm thinking like New York Times kind of stuff, so honestly, I had no clue. Okay. And I'm like, what is she getting herself into? Because my wife is scared of nothing. And when she talks about soaring, there is no fear. She will take the leap and bound. She will not think twice. So it's me kind of pulling her back from the ledge, kind of hanging on by a tail. So yeah, it was terrifying, but I was excited for you because there was the passion. You could hear the passion in her voice, the passion in her eyes, just the way she was thinking about it. And she was super excited. And like she said, I've never told her no. I support her 200% and I always will.
Yeah.
So, and what her dreams are my dreams.
Aw, I didn't even pay him to say that, ladies and gentlemen. He said it all on his own. So now it's been almost 3 years, right? Sure. And it's been, the first 2 years were hard. I mean, they've been hard, right?
Oh yeah, the life of an entrepreneur, starting up any business. I personally don't have that experience, but I've known a lot of people that have done it. It's always a challenge, and it's not ever not going to be a challenge,
right?
So I say the first year it was definitely a struggle. There's a lot of tears, on her part, just because she's not naturally a salesperson, and so when you start a publication, running those magazines, you got to get up and running, and you got to meet people, and you got to sell, and you got to want them to sponsor the magazines, to be in there, and that's just not your forte.
Right.
So, there's a lot of anguish, rejections. You got to have thick skin, and you do. For the most part, you hit your breaking points where you'll text me.
Enough.
Yeah, enough's enough, but, she'll text me because I'm Mr. Fix-It, right?
Right.
That's in our relationship. I'm Mr. Fix-It. I'm the one always giving advice. Hey, do this. Did you think about this? And that just really drives her crazy. So anymore, it's now when she's having a real bad day or things are starting to collide, where it's just not lining up and a lot of pressure, she'll just text me. It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. She's
like, hey, when you get home tonight, we need to talk. I don't want you to say anything. I don't want you to try to fix anything. I don't want any advice. I just want you to let me vent. And that's when I know she's at that point, and that's what I do. Yeah. I just shut up. Yeah. And I just listen. Now, I didn't say anything that night.
You did not say one word, which drove me nuts.
I did my tongue. I literally had to hold it all back for about a good 30, 45 minutes, but I did it. So, but, I'd say, like you said, the last 3 years, but so much of it's evolved now. It's gone from the magazines to you and Mike and the RV Connector, it's expanded, the social media and everything. And, the first couple of years were tough. as you're kind of building the magazines, getting up to where you can actually go to print. But then now I'd say the last 2 years to 18 months has gotten more hectic
Yes.
because of basically diversifying,
Right.
like branching out and, so, and it's hard on the family.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's an entrepreneur that's been there, done that, or thinking about it, you just need to realize this is just not an easy road to run.
Yeah.
It's basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's you.
Yeah.
It's your business. It's your name. It's your life. And at the end of the day, you own it and
Yeah.
you've got to control it. And, there's a lot of perks to being an entrepreneur because you are your own boss.
Correct.
But if
Which is
it's
also a downfall.
Which is a downfall, because if it fails and you don't have the drive and do the things that you need to do to be successful, it's all on you. And you can't turn around and start pointing fingers at other people.
Right.
Because it's your fault.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
and that beats you up after a while.
Yeah.
But it does, because she's gone a lot. We run completely different schedules.
Yeah.
I do not have a 9 to 5 job. I work a lot of early mornings, late nights, a lot of times weekends. She's out all day, meetings, businesses, constantly doing that stuff. But then at night she's out for events.
Right.
Constantly just networking, meeting people, to kind of expand. And so, that takes a challenge. There's a lot of time away from home. So anybody thinking about getting this, you need to have a strong marriage. You need to have a rock, to be there supportive. And like she said, I've always done it. I've always supported her and I always will. I embrace that role of being able to do those things at night so she can do what she wants to do to chase her dream. So
just to give you guys a little bit of background, I launched my publication during COVID.
Yep.
So my first year of being in business, nobody ever saw my face, right? All of my sales that I made were just strictly from phone calls. And so, that's probably the most challenging thing, to reach out to a business and say, hey, I have this concept, even though as a business, we've been in business for 17 years, but I have nothing to show you. I can't say, hey, I have this publication. It's been in print for so many years. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, that's when I launched my magazine. But in the first 2 years, we've talked about this, he is my rock, and I'm extremely grateful. And our business even says, you need to have somebody who can help you pay the bills, because you don't get paid until your magazine actually goes to print. I haven't gotten paid in the last 2 years.
3 years.
So, started to pay myself now. So, but that's a conversation that we've had too, as well. So as an entrepreneur, you either have to have the capital to back you, to pay for your salary, your benefits, all of the things that you need to pay for, or you have
Sugar daddy.
sugar daddy, somebody who bankrolls you, which is kind of funny because he's the CFO of a bank. So there's sort of a little a double entendre there. But, we've had that conversation where he gets, from his perspective, it gets really frustrating because at the end of the day, our family doesn't see any benefit of all of the hard work I've put into it. We're starting to see it now a little bit, not a lot, but I had to share with him because he's like, where is all this money? You keep saying that you're making money, but where is the money? Because I haven't seen one dime of it. And so to say to him, I understand that, but I have to reinvest that money into my business. Things like sponsoring my show because he sponsors my magazine, things like starting my podcast, building systems and processes right now when my business is super young, so that when it does grow and scale, I have the foundation versus having it built on sand. As an entrepreneur, somebody who's like, oh yes, let me go and do this. Then from you, who's always, and not a knock to that, but you've always been 9 to 5, right? So it's always been, and this is going to sound really mean, you building somebody else's dream, you being a part of somebody else's corporation, right? An integral part of it, but it's never been your own. So that perspective is very different. And so being able to see that from the outside is very different as well too.
Yeah. And I think, for me, it's been a learning process and I continue to learn, as we talk about these things, but her point is right. I guess I get frustrated because I see the amount of work that she puts into this day in and day out, doing things on weekends, doing things at night, gone all day. And then when the money doesn't come to the account, it's kind of like, why are you doing this? Where's the rub? It's like, you're not a nonprofit.
Yes.
You if you just want to do this, go get a job, right? Go get a 9 to 5 job and get paid if you're going to be gone.
Or go work for a nonprofit and don't get paid and just do something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. Right. So it's been a process for me. We've had a lot of conversations about it, and I think I'm finally understanding what she's doing. As far as the understanding of reinvesting in the business. to make it grow and successful. And she's right, you do. I mean, all businesses have to do that.
Right.
But, me being a CFO in a bank, you can't run in the red.
Right.
You can't run in the red for year after year after year, because sooner or later it's just going to crumble.
Right.
So I'm not used to those types of things. So to her point, we're lucky because I have a very stable job. And,
Right.
Mine's kind of always been the stable, the breadwinner per se,
Right.
to basically allow her the backing to do those things. Because if we didn't have that, she couldn't pursue in this dream.
Right.
And that's not like saying, oh, me, yeah, I'm so great. But,
It's the reality.
We do have that foundation.
Right.
So that as those things grow and you expand, I retire.
And my son keeps asking me. So I have, I've been saying this for years, but my goal truly is to make enough money to where I can replace his income, and for you to do something that you are passionate about, because you have done that for me for the past 23 years. And my son every once in a while will go and say, hey, mommy, have you made enough money so daddy can retire? So I have my 11-year-old, not only him, but my 11-year-old as well, who is asking me, those hard questions. But let's talk a little bit about, because we've had this. Go ahead.
I was gonna say one thing. I mean, it is a partnership.
It is.
And so, she worked early in our marriage, even when after we had Michaela, Michaela was born, and then Jack was born, and you basically worked full time. I worked full time, and eventually you started to step away from that because you wanted to be at home more,
right,
be with the kids more. And we were blessed enough that we were able to do that. So she's always been my rock too. So we're always each other's rocks, but I wouldn't be where I am today in my career without her behind me. Like, it takes two to tango, right? I can't do these things. I mean, I lived through a park for 7 years, right? My job was 2 hours away.
Yep.
So she's at home taking care of the kids. I'm back on the weekend. So it's always been this give and take, support each other. And now I get the opportunity to support her while I'm still working, but I can take care of things at home.
Right.
While she can go out and do that stuff. I can make sure the kids are fed, homework's done. So I can do the things that she did for so many years that I didn't do. So it's kind of like reversing roles a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. But being a mompreneur, the guilt sets in pretty well. Because what did Jack say to me the other night when I actually made dinner for the first time in like a couple weeks? He was like, it was really nice to have a home cooked meal.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Like, if you want to take a fork and shove it into my chest and twist it a little bit, that's
the hard part, because I don't cook. Like,
I
don't cook. I can do the bare minimum, but with my work schedule, DoorDash, love you. I mean,
so let me clarify this. He did cook, because when we first started dating and I was working full time and going to school full time, you cooked.
I wouldn't call it cooking.
We had
chicken on a George Foreman grill is not cooking. I'm sorry, it's not cooking.
It's still cooking though. We didn't, and DoorDash didn't exist back then, and I almost said StubHub, which is not what we're talking.
StubHub didn't probably
Grubhub.
Yeah,
whatever it is. I don't even know. Uber Eats, those weren't around. So, but let's talk a little bit about, because this is a conversation we've been having. Like, I'm out. Yes, I work all day. I have meetings, but then I have networking events. And one of the things I'm blessed with is to be connected to Mike, because Mike is connected to everybody. And so I've been able to be what he affectionately calls me, the Princess Mayor, because he's introduced me to so many people. So I do know a lot of people. And if it hadn't been for Mike and other people, key individuals in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm super grateful for that. But it does mean being out a lot at networking events. So it does take you making sure that Jack's lunch is packed, cooking them dinner, or having, dinner delivered, or whatever the case may be, making sure that they go to bed on time. Because sometimes I don't even come home until super late at night. So that's been hard for you lately a lot as well too. And so that is something that as an entrepreneur, you have to realize that you don't have to do all of these things. Like, I could choose to stay at home, not go to any networking events, only work a typical 9 to 5. But I truly, I want to be the person that as soon as somebody in Richmond says, I need, the first person they think of is me. And it doesn't matter what it is. I need an electrician. I'm going to call Anna. I need a new job, which somebody messaged me the other day. She said, hey, if you know anybody who's looking, can you let me know? I've connected her to 5 different opportunities and set her up on 2 different interviews. And this is the other thing that we've had conversations about is, and he's asked me, why don't you just be a therapist? Because you seem to be really good at that. But he said, all of the stuff that you do, you don't get paid for.
Mm.
And so that's hard for him to understand as well too, because coming from the mentality of if I work 8 hours and I'm going to get paid for 8 hours, a lot of stuff that we do as entrepreneurs, we don't get paid for.
Right. Yeah.
There's not a direct reciprocation of I did this for you, therefore I got this.
Mhm.
My belief, and this is something that, this is the woo-woo part of me, is that if I go and I help somebody and they get a new job or they get connected or whatever the case may be, then the universe is then going to reciprocate that and I'm going to get in on the back end, and it's not going to be a direct correlation. But that's hard for you, one, coming from the work,
The corporate
space,
world.
corporate world,
Basically, you get hired.
and not being woo-woo like I am.
Go to the corporate world, right? I mean, that's what my entire career there.
Yeah.
I get a salary, I get paid, so I'm
Yes.
expecting that to show up every 2 weeks. I'm expecting the benefits. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's hard just seeing you. And I guess I almost feel like it's almost like you're doing it for no reason, but understand the reasons you do it. It's just like, it's just like you're not getting the benefits out of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like you put these hours in, but you're not getting rewarded, but you are getting rewarded in your own way.
Yes.
And eventually that comes back around. So I understand that, but it takes me some time. I'm almost slow.
No, you're not slow. And we've, and he's been super upset lately too, because he's even said to me, he's like, I just feel like you don't want to be at home,
Mhm.
right? Because you're out so often doing these other things, and that's not it. But I see the big vision. I see what is possible, and knowing that when I'm in these spaces with new individuals and people, that I will get rewarded, and I will see that, and it may take longer than I would like for it to, but eventually that's going to happen. So tell people, okay, how do I ask this question? Tell people, like, would you ever change the way things have been so far? Like, would you change how our life has been? Like, whether or not, like that day when I came in and said, hey, I'm going to be a publisher,
Mhm.
do you ever regret saying yes and wishing that you had said no?
No.
That I just sat at home and
No.
Because you said that too. Like, he's like, why don't you just sit at home and not do anything?
Yeah.
Well, not do anything, but like,
Well, and I guess, so I would say, no, I don't have any regrets. I didn't regret the day you became a publisher. It was more like the terrifying, okay, what are you getting into?
Right.
Something you have no experience in.
or how much is it going to cost me?
Yeah,
That was the
what's it
other
going
thing.
to cost me down the road? Because she's always kind of been an entrepreneur at heart. And
Right.
she's done a few things earlier in life that cost us money that just didn't pan out, right?
Right.
And most entrepreneurs probably fail in the first couple of businesses. That's probably reality.
Right.
You're not going to nail it out of the park on the first one. So, what's I going to say?
Would you have said, do you regret saying yes?
No, I don't
For
feel.
supporting me.
No, definitely don't. No, I was going down another path and now I've lost it.
Sorry.
Yeah, got me. Let's think about it now.
Wasn't meant to be said, I guess.
No, I think it was.
Oh,
Just,
he's gonna remember when we're in the car on the way home. We'd be like, oh, this is what I was gonna say.
no, so just getting back to the regretting it. No.
Okay.
Oh no, no. It was circling back to you've always kind of been, we talked about the entrepreneur and failing the first couple times or
Right.
whatever. And I think that kind of sets you back because you get a bad taste in your mouth,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
You get scared and you're like, all right, I screwed up the first time or screwed up or it didn't work for
Right.
whatever the reasons are. But you talked about wanting to stay home.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, well, why don't you just stay home? Like, we're financially secure enough to do that stuff because that's originally what you wanted to do.
It was.
So
Yes.
that was originally, we talked about earlier, Michaela was born, she worked full time. Jack came along, she was still working. And then she's like, hey, I'd like to go part time because I want to spend more time with kids. That's great. Then eventually I want to stop working. But then shortly thereafter, all the other things, like you're not a stay at home person.
Right.
Not that you want to be a stay at home mom, right?
Right.
You love our kids.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful mother. And that was kind of what you talked about. But I think you figured out pretty quickly, I don't want to do that. Not in a bad way.
Right.
You have bigger dreams.
Yeah.
And you're able to do that, raising a family.
Right.
Being there for them.
Yeah.
And chase your dreams and your passion. You started with yoga and it's kind of slowly branched out to all these other things. Now you're publishing a magazine, RV Connector, the radio show. I mean, so I guess that's what you originally thought, but it really you didn't want to be the Betty homemaker.
Right. Yeah.
Deep down, that was just never really.
Yeah.
So that was what I was going to circle back to is that you could just always kind of tell eventually
Right.
it was going to go in this direction or
Yeah.
in some direction, you know what I mean? So.
Okay. All right. Well, so what piece of advice would you give to a significant other who is married to, and I don't think there's anybody as crazy as I am. However, if they're married to an entrepreneur, what's the one piece of advice you would give them before we close out today?
You're going to have to be patient.
Mhm.
and I'm not patient.
He's not.
I'm trying to learn patience. You know, you just got to be there to listen and support. You know, it's a challenging process. It really is. And, you know, you just got to be there to know that it's going to be okay, that you're going to help them. You just got to be prepared for the ups and downs.
Yeah.
You know, she talked about, you know, she has gone a lot.
Mhm.
It is frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, because it seems like our schedules are always going in opposite directions and we don't get a lot of time together.
Right.
So I think you got to prepare yourself for that kind of stuff. You got to prepare to make sure, and we're working on this, is making time for each other.
Right.
We've struggled with that, you know,
Yeah.
because it's so hard. Because at the end of the day, it's like 9 o'clock. I'm exhausted at this point. I've been working since 7. You've been out all day. You still might even be home yet. You know, so it's like there's just not that time.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the weekend comes and, you know, you're emceeing an event, you know, for a charity, and, you know, she's out half the day and I'm home doing the laundry, you know, doing those things. And you just got to learn to really spend time together.
Yeah.
And make sure you're making that connection and just be prepared. It's going to be rough.
It is rough.
And I don't know that I'm not going to say it's not going to get better. Eventually it will get a little bit better, but, you know, as an entrepreneur in what you do, you're always going to be on the go.
Yeah.
It's not going to be one day you're like, all right, this is all stable. It's running itself.
It's not going to happen.
That's not this business model. It's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So patience, ladies and gentlemen, that is what Mr. Sothen is going to leave you with today.
best I got.
Thank you, my love, for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, until we see each other next time, stay fluid, my friends. I'm always cheering for you.